In the second year of being with Cameron, Joanna discovered that he was cheating. The object of his infidelity was none other than her sister. It was clearly a child they had adopted together. Yet everyone loved her sister more. Even her own husband would leave her in the hospital to find that woman. Joanna's heart was like ashes. She secretly bought a cruise ship. On the day of the wedding, she left and gave them a grand gift, wishing my sister a happy wedding. Miss, this cruise ship is comparable to the original Titanic, and it's the latest model, with everything you could want, and service throughout the journey. Joanna's eyelashes fluttered, her gaze fixed on the model in front of her. If I get on the boat, can I leave this place behind? The service guy immediately perked up upon hearing this. Of course. You can go wherever you want. The boat has everything you need. You could even spend your whole life on it without ever having to disembark. And, Joanna interrupted him lightly, pointing with her finger. I want this one. The service guy was delighted. All right. It will take about a week for this boat to arrive, so you will need to wait for a while. If you are planning to move directly onto it, you should prepare well. Joanna glanced at the card handed to her by the waiter and casually slipped it into her bag. She didn't forget to remind the waiter before leaving. I don't want anyone else to know about this. Only after hearing a satisfactory response did she leave. Joanna made a decision to go to a place where no one could find her, never to return. After much thought, she concluded that this cruise ship was the most suitable, because they would never suspect that she intended to hide out at sea for the rest of her life. This time, she decided not to take anyone with her. At that moment, Joanna's phone rang, and Cameron's name appeared on the screen. Wife, today is the family banquet. Don't forget. Where are you? I'll come pick you up. Hearing the worried tone from the other end, Joanna felt a wave of nausea. It was only not long ago that he accidentally saw Cameron's phone and realized that the person he had always liked was actually her sister, Sophia. He spent an entire year trying every possible way to make Joanna happy. He would appear whenever Joanna needed him, providing her with a sense of security. Even on an ordinary day, he would create the sense of ritual she desired. Even after being rejected 99 times when confessing to her, he would never lose his temper. He promised her that he would surely touch her heart with his sincerity. But Joanna never expected that the person who seemed to love her so much was actually harboring another woman in his heart. She laughed at her 2 years of dedication, as if it were just a joke. Joanna couldn't muster a shred of interest. If it weren't for Cameron reminding her, she would have even forgotten that today was the monthly family banquet, and every time this occasion came around, it would be a difficult day for her. Joanna spoke in a cold tone. No need. I'll go by myself. She hung up the phone without hesitation. By the time Joanna arrived, the sky was already dark, and the people at the table were looking at Joanna with cold eyes, especially her sister, Sophia. Without waiting for Joanna to explain, Sophia spoke first. Sister, do you not know that we have all been waiting for you alone? Coming in and out of the Liu family. How come you haven't learned even this little bit of manners? You are about to get married. What will you do in the future? Joanna looked up at her parents, who still wore that same expression towards her. She didn't understand. Clearly she was the child brought back by her parents together. Why is it that Sophia is the apple of their eye, while she is treated like a discarded shoe? Back then, Dad Liu lost his own biological daughter. When he found Joanna and Sophia, he discovered that their features were strikingly similar to those of the daughter lost by the Liu family, and thus he adopted them both. In the end, however, he publicly declared that Sophia was their biological daughter, while Joanna was merely the adopted daughter. She had grown accustomed to such days, facing Sophia's questions with a cold gaze. I'm sorry. I'm late. And what Sophia hated most was her indifferent expression. You can disregard me. After all, you've always been like this since childhood. But how can you not respect your parents? She looked as if she was indignant on behalf of Dad Liu's mother. Before Joanna could speak, Cameron, who was sitting beside her, spoke first. Don't be angry, Sophia. Your sister didn't mean it. Don't hold it against your sister. The first thing he said was not to defend Joanna, but to comfort Sophia. This is not the first time. He already knows what to say to comfort Sophia. The thousands of messages in his phone express his love for Sophia every moment. Joanna only felt incredibly foolish. Foolish enough to realize now that he had a second account. And everything in that second account was about Sophia. Everything. Moments. Backgrounds. Everything. Not a trace of her presence could be seen. It was as if they had never loved each other. Cameron not only knows how to comfort Sophia but is also very good at making Dad Lou happy. It's not just that his family background is affluent, worthy of the esteemed Lou family. There's also the fact that he is obedient and sensible, a son-in-law who can be presented with pride. Dad Lou's mother was soon cheered up by his few words, and he said to Joanna, "All right, sit down. You are really lucky to have Cameron here." After being praised, Cameron looked as if he had a glow on his face, grinning at Joanna. But what he didn't know was that Joanna had always hated his obsequious demeanor the most. She didn't raise her eyes to look at him, but out of the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of his hand under the table, eagerly reaching for Sophia. She immediately lifted her head, unable to utter a single word, feeling a lump in her throat, still pretending to be oblivious while shoveling food into her mouth, struggling to control her emotions, not allowing others to notice. Thoughts flashed through her mind about the date the boat would arrive, hinting to herself that soon she could completely leave this man before her, and this home that weighed down on her, making it hard to breathe. Early in the morning, Joanna was called up by Cameron. As she saw Cameron's lips almost touching hers, she immediately sat up against the bed. "What's wrong?" Cameron showed a beaming smile and pulled her into his arms. "Did you forget? We have an appointment today to try on the wedding dress." Joanna was taken aback. So much had happened in the past few days that she couldn't react immediately. She gently nodded. It turned out there was only a week left until their wedding. "Finally, I can bring you home as my wife. I've waited too long for this day." Even the day of their wedding was arranged with Sophia. In this lifetime, it seemed she could never escape Sophia. Ever since the day they were brought back from the orphanage together, Sophia never intended for there to be two heiresses in this family. She targeted Joanna everywhere, framing and sabotaging her on numerous occasions. Joanna coldly watched Cameron without speaking. On the day of the wedding, she would definitely give them a surprise. Seeing Cameron smile genuinely was truly delightful. At this moment, was his heart filled with joy for finally marrying Joanna, or was he happy after achieving his goal with Sophia? Perhaps these things no longer matter. It was only after she arrived at the wedding dress shop that she discovered Sophia was also there. At a glance, she saw that Sophia was wearing the wedding dress she had customized, and Sophia even wore it without Joanna's consent. Every move, every frown and smile, playing in front of the mirror. Cameron stepped forward, admiringly looking at Sophia as her lips gently curled into a smile. "Wow, Sophia is so beautiful." Sophia lowered her eyes and smiled shyly, as if they were the couple about to get married. "Sister, is it okay if I try on your wedding dress? I'm so envious that my sister is getting married. Unlike me, my parents are simply unwilling to let me go." Not just the wedding dress, but also the man in front of her could be given to her. Cameron looked at the lively Sophia, his gaze lingering on her. Sophia is so lovely. Dad Lou and Mom Lou naturally can't bear to part with her. This seems like a polite remark, but it is all genuine praise from his heart. Joanna felt a wave of nausea, coldly staring at Sophia. "Have you worn enough? Take it off." Sophia stared at her in surprise. Although Joanna had always had a cold demeanor since childhood, she had never spoken so bluntly before. "I'm sorry, sister. I didn't know you cared so much about this wedding dress." She showed a look of grievance. How could she not know that Joanna cared? The wedding dress was designed by Joanna herself. From choosing the fabric to the decorations, every step was done by her own hands. From the proposal until now, she had placed immense importance on this love. Cameron glanced at Sophia and immediately turned to Joanna and said, "It's not a big deal. Don't be angry. My wife, Sophia, it's her first time wearing this. As her sister, just let her be." Joanna turned to look at him, her eyes cold, unsure of what to say. There wasn't even a trace of anger. How could he know Joanna so well and not realize that she disliked wearing clothes that others had worn, even if they were her own? For the first time, she felt that the man before her was so unfamiliar. He was no longer the Cameron who had once pursued her relentlessly. She raised her gaze to Sophia, not wanting to argue. Her eyelashes fluttered, and her speech was quick. "I've given it to you." After saying that, she turned and left the bridal shop. Cameron immediately took a step forward and grabbed her wrist. "Honey, what's wrong? Are you angry? Aren't we here to try on wedding dresses today?" "Don't be angry. I'll be right." Joanna felt it was noisy and immediately interrupted. "No, I'm just a bit tired. I'll head back first. You can choose any wedding dress you like." Cameron immediately smiled upon hearing this. "I knew my wife was the most understanding." She left Cameron alone in the bridal shop and went home by herself. Before leaving, she saw them playing and laughing in the bridal shop, and a ripple of emotion stirred within her. Turning her head away, there was not a trace of expression on her face. A wedding dress is meant to be worn for someone meaningful. Cameron doesn't deserve to see Joanna wear the wedding dress she designed herself. This marriage has been a deception from the very beginning. Sophia posted a photo of herself in a wedding dress on her social media, captioning it, "This beautiful wedding dress is simply tailored for me. And the most important thing is that the photographer has a good eye." These photos, without guessing, you know they were taken by Cameron for her. Joanna threw her phone aside, too lazy to argue, only feeling exhausted. When she opened her eyes again, she realized it was already midnight. At that moment, Cameron was washing up in the bathroom. She slowly opened her eyes, and the sound of a message notification caught Joanna's attention. She turned her gaze towards Cameron's phone. Perhaps Cameron thought Joanna was already asleep, completely unguarded. The social media account logged in on the phone was indeed his secondary account. Usually, Joanna did not have the habit of checking his phone. Cameron knew very well in his heart that even if there was, he would have countless ways to deceive Joanna. At that moment, a message popped up on the phone screen. Opening it, a person with the note baby had sent several photos. The woman in the photos was wearing stockings, dressed in a sexy and cute outfit. She recognized at a glance that this was Sophia. "Ron, come find me quickly." Same old place. When Joanna saw those photos and the ambiguous messages, her hands couldn't help but tremble. It seemed that in the next second, the phone would fall to the ground. She only felt her breath quicken, never expecting that they had already taken this step behind her back, even though they were just a few days away from getting married. But when she saw these messages again, she still felt heartache. Hearing the sound of water stop, Joanna put down her phone, turned around, and closed her eyes to lie down. Cameron picked up his phone, first glanced at Joanna, and only after confirming she was asleep did he initiate the conversation. His tone was ambiguous. "But I just got back. Babe, how about tomorrow?" Sophia on the other end was chattering away, even more audaciously calling with a voice message. "Ron, don't you miss me? But I miss you. I just want to see you. By the way, does the wedding dress I'm wearing today look good?" Cameron didn't even hesitate. "Of course it looks good." Sophia continued to press for answers. "So, who looks better, my sister or me?" Cameron paused for a second, glanced at Joanna, and then spoke into the phone. "No one looks better than my baby." These words pierced Joanna's heart like a needle. He had once said that Joanna was the most beautiful and kindest woman he had ever seen. Just recently, Cameron proposed on one knee in front of everyone. Everyone cast envious glances, and even Joanna believed she would be happy for a lifetime. It was only now that she realized Cameron had pursued her and proposed just to take Joanna away from the Liu family early. Only in this way could Sophia feel at ease being the lady of the house for Joanna while keeping her under her control. Sophia seemed to have heard a satisfactory response, and her tone immediately softened. "So, are you coming to find me?" "I'm just today, Sophia." In a weak tone, Cameron still softened his heart. "Your sister is asleep now, so wait for me." He stood up, picked up his clothes, and prepared to leave. Before leaving, he didn't forget to send a message to Joanna to report in. "Honey, there's a sudden issue at the company. I have to go back for a bit. Be good at home. Wait for me to come back, okay?" Joanna didn't know this was Cameron lying to her for the umpteenth night. Perhaps every night he said he had something to do, He was secretly going out with Sophia for a rendezvous. It's already countless times. She watched Cameron leave. Bitterness beyond words. Lying on the bed, she couldn't help but let her tears soak the pillow. She pouted and closed her eyes. Cameron, this time, I will let you go. There are still 5 days until the cruise ship arrives. Joanna woke up early in the morning to take care of the paperwork. As soon as the ship arrives, she will board immediately, and the first stop will be Paris. This is the place she has always wanted to go. Once she resolves these matters, she can finally live for herself. She has already packed most of her things. Cameron came back early today, seeing Joanna busy with preparations. He thought she was getting ready for the wedding. He stepped forward and took Joanna's hand. Wife, you don't have to work so hard. Once you marry me, I'll take care of everything at home. You just need to enjoy yourself. Joanna was momentarily stunned before slowly nodding her head. Marrying him? That was impossible. The smile on Cameron's face made Joanna feel exhausted for him. Before long, he received a call from the Liu family. Today is the day our two families discuss the wedding arrangements. You must be present. This isn't a discussion, it's a notification. Even if Joanna was unwilling, she had to finish this act. The location was set in a park, and the restaurant was Sophia's favorite style. It was supposed to be Joanna and Cameron's day. Yet Sophia was seated in a red robe at the head of the table. Fu father and Fu mother were particularly fond of Sophia, naturally allowing her to sit wherever she pleased. Compared to Joanna, the adopted daughter, Fu father and Fu mother hoped that Cameron would marry Sophia. So all along, they never really liked Joanna. Initially, it was Joanna who loved Cameron, willing to endure for him and live this way. She believed that one day, they would change their minds about her. But she doesn't think that way now. She doesn't want to live like this for even a day. Seeing Joanna come in, they merely glanced at her, yet their bodies still leaned towards Sophia as they chatted. They kept criticizing Joanna without pause. If only you were as lively and lovely as Sophia. I really wish I had a daughter like Sophia. This wasn't the first time they had said it. Joanna felt somewhat numb to it, but she was born cold and found it impossible to show her other side to these people. Sophia replied with a smile. It's fine. Just treat me like your daughter. Although my sister is often unlikable, I will still help her win your favor. Being articulate is her strong suit. And in no time, she had Fu father Fu mother laughing happily. Meanwhile, Cameron was also laughing heartily beside her. He looked at Sophia with the gaze of an artist admiring his masterpiece, filled with satisfaction. Throughout the whole time, Joanna spoke very little, just wanting to leave quickly. Perhaps no one can understand her feelings. She really hates occasions like this. Previously, Cameron always helped her find excuses to escape, and he wouldn't care what they said. But now, as she looked at the man before her, she felt indifferent. Was it that he hid it too well, or that Joanna discovered it too late? When it was time to go back, it started to rain outside. Sophia was wearing a beautiful dress and stepping on delicate high heels. She didn't even call out to Cameron, yet he took the initiative to pull her into his arms. He held an umbrella in one hand and lifted her with the other. Sophia nestled in Cameron's embrace like a little cat. Cameron was drenched, yet he couldn't bear to let Sophia get a single drop of rain. He even forgot that Joanna was still standing behind him. She coldly watched their backs as they walked towards the car, recalling the year she loved him most. When he held Joanna just like that, Joanna had no time to think so much. She rushed into the rain and returned to the car. Only after calming Sophia down did Cameron finally dare to get out of Sophia's car. Seeing Joanna soaked in rain, he was momentarily stunned before quickly explaining. Sophia has been weak since childhood. Getting caught in the rain would make her sick, so I took her to the car first. You won't be angry, will you? Honey, why didn't you wait for me to pick you up? Cameron realized his earlier behavior and immediately apologized. Joanna just gently replied, It's fine. In Cameron's heart, Joanna was never one to hold grudges. When she said it was fine, he naturally felt there was no problem. But in Joanna's heart, Cameron had long since rotted away. On the way back, Joanna didn't say a word. The two of them felt as if they had just met. If possible, Joanna would rather have never met him. Joanna returned to Lou's home and cleared out all her belongings, leaving behind only a diary. That diary contained all the memories of her childhood. She thought of it as a final gift to Lou's dad and her mother. No one knew why she was packing up, and no one cared. Lou's mom watched her leave with a suitcase in hand. She merely coldly remarked, "What? Are you really planning to never come back for the rest of your life? You better pray that nothing strange happens, or we won't be responsible for you." Perhaps from the moment they learned that Joanna was not really their daughter, they no longer recognized Joanna as a member of the Lou family. They were eager to marry her off as soon as possible. She did not respond, only turning to glance at the woman who had raised her for 20 years. "Really? Is there not a single feeling?" She looked at Lou's mom and slowly uttered the word goodbye. Lou's mom had no awareness at all, just like any ordinary day. No one knew this was her farewell. She stored her belongings in a safe place. Having decided to leave, she wanted to leave nothing behind. When she returned home, it should have been evening. Cameron immediately placed the wedding dress he personally chose in front of Joanna when he saw her return. A wedding should only happen once. How can one settle for less? Quick, choose one that you like. Joanna stared at the neatly arranged white wedding dresses in front of her, stunned for a while. When she turned her gaze back to Cameron, her eyes unconsciously filled with tears. It turns out that all the love can be faked. He casually picked up a wedding dress and handed it to Joanna. "This one suits you. Go try it on." Joanna didn't refuse, even though these couldn't compare to the one she designed herself. When she came out in the second evening gown, she saw him answering a phone call. "Do I have to go shopping with you now? But I'm here with your sister trying on wedding dresses." "Okay. Then you wait for me. I'll be there soon." He was hiding in the corner, speaking very softly, but Joanna still heard him clearly. After he hung up the phone, he smiled and hugged Lou Chin from behind. "Honey, you look good in anything you wear. There's something going on at my company right now, so I might not be able to go with you. Wear whatever you like." Joanna knew this was just his excuse, and he was really going to accompany her sister Sophia shopping. Joanna didn't ask any more questions, just nodded in agreement. After he left, Joanna called for the servant. Looking at the wedding dress in front of her, her tone was cold. "Burn all these evening gowns, not a single one left." Even if the servant has doubts, they wouldn't dare to ask another question. They can only obediently follow orders. Watching those pure white wedding dresses burn to ashes on the ground, what burned away was not just the wedding dresses, but also her 2 years of feelings. A fire of anger surged in Joanna's heart, as if it were about to break free from societal norms. By evening, she indeed saw the moments that Sophia had posted. Cameron was generous, buying her a new handbag and luxury items. Looking at the pictures, a faint smile appeared at the corner of Joanna's mouth. She had already thought of giving them a gift, a round fan that she had personally customized. It was originally meant to be used on her wedding day, but now it seems unnecessary. Since Sophia loves her things so much, she decided to give all of them to her. The day she left was the same day they received the gifts. She would surely wish them a lifetime of happiness together. When Cameron returned, it was already evening, and he remembered to bring Joanna his favorite chestnuts. "I happened to see someone selling roasted chestnuts when I came back, so I brought you some." Some of them were already peeled. Joanna was taken aback. She remembered that she loved roasted chestnuts, but since childhood, Sophia would argue about everything with her. Whatever she liked, Sophia liked too. Joanna coldly turned her face, making it impossible to discern her expression. "No, I don't want to eat." Cameron felt that Joanna was still angry about what happened in the morning. He hugged her from behind. "Honey, I really had things to do during the day. It wasn't intentional that I couldn't accompany you, and my wife looks good in anything, so I naturally have no worries." These words now held no credibility in Joanna's heart. She remembered what Cameron had said to Sophia. Thinking of this, Joanna felt nauseous. She gently pushed Cameron away and replied without a hint of emotion, "No." Cameron smiled as soon as he heard her name. To him, Joanna had always been the understanding and obedient one. He slowly took Joanna's hand, his eyes filled with deep affection, his tone gentle. The day after tomorrow is our wedding. My family arranged for a premarital checkup, and I will be there to accompany you well tomorrow. His slightly curved eyes were fixed on Joanna. She was momentarily stunned, but a trace of sadness flickered in her eyes. She turned away, yet still responded with her mouth. The next day Joanna still got up with Cameron as usual. I received information from the cruise company early in the morning. The cruise you customized will arrive in 2 days. You can prepare to board in advance. When she saw the message, Joanna's eyes flickered. Honey, we need to get ready to leave. She immediately turned off her phone. When she saw Cameron, he was holding a small bag filled with the carefully prepared items. He picked up the bag and shook it in front of Joanna, as if he were a child seeking praise. Joanna remained silent, only revealing a hint of a bitter smile. Honey, I heard there are many blood tests today. You're usually afraid of pain, but I'm here with you. So don't be scared. Cameron hugged her tightly in his arms, as if he was even more nervous than Joanna. Joanna, holding the list in her hand, quietly waited in line. He watched as Joanna finished her first vial of blood, his heart aching as he frowned. He would softly comfort Joanna. Does it hurt? Don't be afraid. I'm here. In the past, when he said this to Joanna, it would warm her heart. But now, she felt not a trace of emotion. She gently nodded. Drawing blood can't compare to the pain he and Sophia caused. At that moment, the familiar ringtone rang out. Joanna was all too familiar with it. It was Sophia's exclusive ringtone. He answered the phone while hiding it from Joanna. He sounded anxious. What's wrong? Wait for me. I'm coming over now. The worry in his eyes was impossible to conceal. He pursed his lips before speaking. There's been a problem at my company. I need to go over there now. I'll come find you later. Joanna didn't ask much. She knew very well what Cameron was going to do. But this repeated deception is really meaningless. Joanna had 6 vials of blood drawn alone. Usually, she was most afraid of pain. During her menstrual period, she would cry from the pain. She watched as the needles were inserted into her veins. This time, however, she felt not a trace of fear. Her nose tinged with acidity. The fire in her heart flared and then extinguished, leaving her speechless. In the end, only numbness remained. She returned home alone, which was just another round of torment for her. Looking at Sophia's new moments, a bouquet after another is placed in a high-end restaurant, accompanied by the caption, "The ones I love today are all by my side." In the photo, Lou Dad and Lou Mom are beaming with smiles, while an inconspicuous person sits in the corner, even without a face. Joanna can guess that it is Cameron. It turns out the whole family has kept her in the dark. Joanna's hand trembles slightly. Thinking of these years, her eyes can't help but redden. She understands it all in her heart. This family never really had her, even though she is Lou Dad's biological daughter. It seems that nothing she says matters. They only care about what they think in their hearts. She really didn't want to live through these days without light. Then I wish them a lifetime of never being apart. Cameron didn't come home all night, only sending a message to Joanna. Honey, I have to work late at the company. You should go to bed early. Even on the day before the wedding, he had to be with Sophia. Joanna only felt it was ironic to keep him around at this time. Much like Sophia's character, she couldn't be bothered to investigate. Preferring to avoid a big argument with them, she still wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. Staying even a minute longer made her feel nauseous. Your ship will arrive at dawn tonight. Will you come during the day or? Before the person on the other end could finish, Joanna interrupted. I'll go at dawn. All right. We'll wait for you. Cameron wasn't home, which saved her a lot of trouble. She packed everything up and sent it away, leaving only Cameron's belongings. The news that they were getting married tomorrow had already spread throughout the circle, and she watched as messages poured in from everyone. Wishing you a happy marriage. Happy marriage! You must be very happy. I've always thought you and Fu are a perfect match. One blessing after another, but they are all just polite words. Joanna felt a sharp pain in her eyes. Marriage? Impossible. She couldn't be bothered to reply to any of them because she never even considered marrying Cameron. One person went to see the wedding venue in advance. Looking at the beautifully arranged decorations, These were the images she had once dreamed of. But the person beside me is not the one from that time. She looked at the photo of them, her smile radiant. In an instant, she tore the wedding photo in front of her. Take these photos down. I don't want to see them. The waiter didn't ask much, only feeling that she didn't like it. What are you getting angry about? You're about to get married. You should know to be more mature and steady. A voice came from Joanna's ear, and when she looked up, she met Lou Mom's gaze. Joanna remained silent. Since she was little, Lou Mom had always required Joanna to be mature and steady, while Sophia could be lively and mischievous. Joanna had long been accustomed to her mother's rhetoric. Lou Mom dismissively took a gift box out of her bag. This is your wedding gift. Joanna was taken aback. Upon reflection, it seemed her mother had never given her anything. Her heart was a mix of emotions, and she only opened it after Lou Mom left. A sparkling diamond necklace appeared before her eyes. She was stunned for a moment, her smile frozen at the corners of her mouth. She remembered this necklace. It was given to Sophia on her 5th birthday by Lou Mom, and Lou Mom saw that Joanna also liked it, and once said she would give it to her when she turned 10. Yet this wait lasted for more than 10 years. Sophia was willing to wait for years for something that could be obtained effortlessly. But after becoming an adult, the first money she earned was enough to buy it. She was silent for a long time, then went out and threw her away in the trash can. She no longer needed it. Today was also the last time they would meet, the day before the wedding. I couldn't live under the same roof as Cameron, so it was also convenient for her to leave at night. For the first time, I received blessings from Sophia, wishing my sister a happy wedding and everlasting happiness. Perhaps when she sent this message, she was lying in Cameron's arms. Of course, Sophia was happy. Once the wedding was over tomorrow, their goals would all be achieved. Joanna smiled, looking at the various boxes in front of her, and replied, "Thank you for your blessings, sister. I will be happy forever. By the way, I bought you a little gift. You'll be able to receive it tomorrow." A few false pleasantries were exchanged. Joanna handed the items she was going to give to Sophia to the courier. On time, when the wedding starts, it will be the moment she receives the gift. She packed everything into the car. She turned to look at the home in front of her. Feeling no reluctance, she picked up her phone and scheduled a message. "Sorry, my wedding with Cameron is cancelled. Please attend the wedding of Cameron and my sister." Then she attached a few intimate photos of Cameron and Sophia. They met so frequently that it was incredibly easy to have someone take a few candid shots. Once she boarded the ship, these messages would be sent out automatically. This is also one of the gifts she gave them. Half an hour later, she saw the cruise ship that looked exactly like the model. "Master, where would you like to go?" Joanna gazed at the sea, a cluster of darkness, impenetrable. "Fortunately, there is light ahead. To Paris." Watching the cruise ship sail further away, she pulled out the card and threw it into the sea. She didn't want anyone to contact her. Thoughts surged. Her eyelashes fluttered. This place, she would never return to again. Cameron was awakened by the ringtone of his phone. "Hurry up. The wedding is about to start. Why can't Joanna's phone be reached?" On the other end of the line was Fu's mother's voice, sounding a bit anxious. Cameron responded lightly and hung up the phone. At that moment, the nearby Sophia was also awakened by the noise. "Ron, would you still like me after marrying my sister?" She looked at Cameron with tearful eyes, her fingers continuously poking at his arm. Cameron pulled her into his embrace. "Of course, everything I do is for you." He gazed deeply at Sophia and kissed her fiercely. "All right, baby, let's get ready. We need to head to the venue." After packing up, Cameron immediately called Joanna. He called once, twice, and by the third call, when no one answered, an inexplicable sense of foreboding crept into his heart. Is something wrong with Joanna? He immediately grabbed his things and prepared to head home, regardless of how everyone tried to stop him. At that moment, he also received a call from an unknown number. It was Joanna's voice. "It's me. My phone had some issues. But don't worry. I'll be waiting for you at the venue. I want to give you a surprise." Only after hearing Joanna's voice did Cameron finally feel relieved. looking at a crowd also searching for Joanna. He smiled and reassured them. Just now Joanna called me. You don't need to worry. She's preparing a surprise for me. Just wait and see, he said with a smile, radiating happiness and full of joy. Even at this moment, still thinking of giving him a surprise, she really gave him face. And the friends around him, upon hearing this, began to cheer. It's been so long and you're still so affectionate. Truly happy. Oh my, how sweet. Until the wedding was about to start, no one had seen Joanna. Fu whispered in Cameron's ear, you don't think she will run away from the wedding, do you? It's been so long and we haven't seen her. If she dares to escape, I won't let her off. Cameron pulled at his mother. No way. She loves me so much. How could she run away? Besides, she said she went to prepare a surprise for me. At this point, he still hadn't realized that this was not a simple matter. It wasn't until the officiant started urging him to go on stage that he began to panic. He could only stand on stage trembling, trying to find excuses for Joanna's tardiness. Please wait a moment. Our wedding is about to start. Before Cameron could finish speaking, murmurs began to rise from the audience, with many taking out their phones to look at Cameron on stage. Fu's mother directly went on stage and pulled him down, placing the phone in front of his eyes. What's wrong with you? Joanna posted on social media. Before meeting Cameron, Joanna was also a renowned designer. She was a symbol of freedom and love in the hearts of netizens. But no one expected that such an outstanding woman would encounter such a situation. Cameron looked at Joanna's message in disbelief. In his memory, Joanna was understanding, obedient, and empathetic, treating him with utmost kindness. It turns out she had known about his affair with Sophia all along. She just kept it hidden. How did she find out? In an instant, he felt like a joke, being pointed at casually by others. At this moment, he finally understood that everything today was Joanna's plan, and the so-called surprise in his mouth was this. His mind went blank with a bang, frozen in place for a moment. A courier appeared at the venue. Looking at the noisy crowd, he shouted, "Excuse me, who is Sophia?" "Sophia. It's me. Is there something wrong?" The courier placed the items on the table in front of her. "This is a package sent to you by Miss Liu." Sophia gaped, recalling what Joanna had said. This was a gift from Joanna. Following Joanna's instructions, the courier opened the package in front of Sophia and the other guests. Before everyone's eyes appeared a wedding dress as white as snow and a delicately crafted round fan. Miss Liu said, "Congratulations on your wedding." The noise rose, but it was just everyone whispering about Sophia and Cameron's sordid affair. Several of Joanna's close friends even started to curse. How could you be her sister? Secretly sleeping with your sister's boyfriend? That's really disgusting. A pair of shameless lovers. Aren't you tired of pretending for so long? Do you still want to treat others like fools? Disgusting. Sophia looked at the others, her eyes reddening amidst the insults, and turned to run outside. Cameron couldn't care less. All he wants now is to see Joanna. He drove all the way, his mind filled with thoughts of Joanna. As the red light ahead turned on, he didn't hesitate for a moment and pressed the accelerator to rush through. He ran through several red lights, his palms sweating uncontrollably. He had never felt so concerned about Joanna. For a moment, he began to feel afraid that Joanna would leave him. The wedding venue is 50 minutes away from home, but this time he only took a little over half an hour to get back. He rushed into the bedroom as soon as he got home, and when he saw the empty room, he was stunned. He couldn't believe what was in front of him. It was so clean it was as if no one had ever lived there. Only his belongings remained in the room, and he called out throughout the entire villa, but he never heard Joanna's response. He stood in the living room, breathing rapidly, feeling the beat of his own heart. He shouted towards the nanny beside him, "Where is Mrs. Liu? Where did everyone go?" The nanny was so frightened by his tone that she didn't dare to make a sound. "Madam, didn't she pack her things and leave yesterday?" The maid thought Joanna was moving things to Fu's house in advance and didn't dare to ask more. Cameron turned pale upon hearing this, clenching his fists tightly. "Find her for me. Bring Mrs. Liu back to me." Since being with Joanna, The servants had never seen Cameron so furious. Cameron felt his whole body tremble, utterly weak, slumping on the sofa, looking up at the happiness character pasted on the window. Suddenly, his throat tightened. Today was clearly their wedding day. Cameron looked down at the wallpaper on his phone. Joanna's smile appeared before his eyes. He was in a daze for a long time. When did she find out? Why did she leave without saying a word? She didn't even give him a chance to explain. When he heard the news of Joanna's departure, he felt a faint heartache. It seemed that in his heart, he truly loved Joanna. After returning home, Sophia threw herself into her room. Upon hearing someone come in, she picked up the teacup by the bed and threw it. "Get out! You're not allowed to come in." Looking up to meet her gaze, he realized it was his mother who had come in. She cried with her head down, and upon seeing Lou Mom immediately withdrew her fierce expression. She dove into Lou Mom's embrace. "What did I do wrong for my sister to treat me like this? What's wrong with Ron liking me? I gave her everything. And in the end, what did I get in return?" In her words, there was not the slightest sense of her own fault. Lou Mom showed a pained expression. No matter what Sophia did wrong, Lou Mom would not see any problem. Even if it meant stealing Joanna's boyfriend, she will only think it's Joanna's fault. Because in her heart, Sophia is the real daughter. "Don't cry, Sophia. Once I find your sister, I will definitely drive her out of the Lou house. No one can bully my daughter." As soon as Sophia heard this, she immediately calmed down, looking at Lou Mom with watery eyes. "Really? Driving Joanna out of the Lou house has always been what she wished for. She knows very well that Joanna is the true heiress of this family, her biological daughter, and she only said a few nice words to deceive Lou Dad into going around in circles." Hearing Lou Mom's response, she felt it was worth it. In this way, she not only possesses the entire Lou family, she can also openly be with Cameron. She gently leaned on Lou Mom's shoulder, a faint smile appearing at the corner of her mouth. Cameron has been looking for Joanna for a long time, but there has been no news at all. It was as if she had truly vanished from the world. His daily and nightly worries, hoping to hear news about Joanna, but all he received were disappointments, one after another. He simply sat quietly in that home, not wanting to answer the call from Sophia. More than anything, there was a newfound disdain in his eyes. If it weren't for this woman, Joanna wouldn't have left. He turned off his phone, not wanting to see any messages about Sophia. He rummaged through everything, trying to find something left behind by Joanna. There was nothing, only a medical examination report stuffed in the trash can. Looking at the marks on the report, how could he not know that Joanna had drawn a full 6 vials of blood? But he also knew that Joanna was most afraid of pain. The doctor had said that Joanna's body was more sensitive than others, so the pain she felt was also twice that of an ordinary person. Cameron gripped the list tightly, breathing heavily, as the scene from that day flashed through his mind. At that moment, Joanna already knew. She must hate him to the core, hate him so much that she left without leaving anything behind, not even a message. Thinking of his beloved Joanna, he had once vowed to protect her for a lifetime, ensuring she would never suffer a bit. But now, the pain Joanna endured was all caused by him. He admitted he regretted it. Sophia called again and again until she heard Cameron's phone had been turned off. In a fit of rage, he slammed his phone hard against the ground. Is it because of this woman? She hasn't answered the phone for several days. In a fit of anger, she ran to what was originally Joanna's room. She always felt that Joanna would come back, and packed up all of Joanna's remaining belongings into a box. Take it and burn it. From now on, this room also belongs to me. Unable to find her, he burned all the things related to Joanna. The nanny with the suitcase happened to run into Lou Mom, who had just returned home. She recognized the suitcase at a glance. It belonged to Joanna. Several days have passed, and no one has heard from her. Even if Lou Mom has never cared about her, there is always a sense of foreboding in the heart. She reached out and grabbed the servant. Just leave the things there. Don't worry about it. Sophia has been causing a ruckus at home for more than just a day or two. She seemed to have grown numb, hearing the same few phrases over and over. Instead of comforting Sophia immediately, I opened up the things left behind by Joanna. She remembered Joanna came to clean up once, and everything should have been taken away. Is there anything left behind? With a question in her mind, she opened it up and, at the moment she saw the items, her eyes widened and she froze in place. Inside were a few old cloth dolls and a stuffed toy, along with a notebook. As I slowly opened it, crooked handwriting came into view. Looking at the date below, it was the diary written by Joanna when she was 10 years old. Mom lied to me again, and so did my sister. They took my doll. Further back, the diary stops at Joanna's 15 years old. Mom and Dad no longer believe me, but I am clearly their biological daughter. Why don't they like me? I also understand why Sophia would deliberately ask about my childhood. It was to make Mom and Dad believe in her. She looked at the lines of text, expressing her grievances and heartache. It felt like this was the first day she truly understood Joanna. Looking at the safety talisman still placed in the box, Mom's eyelashes trembled slightly, her fingers seeming to shake as if they could no longer hold on. Memories flooded in. When her daughter was born, she personally placed a safety talisman on her. If it weren't for what she witnessed today, she might have almost forgotten. She remembered Joanna standing before her, trembling, so many times wanting to deliver something to Mom but always being interrupted. Mom tightly clenched the items in her palm. It turned out that the daughter she had abandoned all those years ago was her biological daughter. At the age of 18, she stopped giving Joanna any living expenses. Every penny was earned through her hard work. I saw her come home at 3 in the morning, and I also saw her finish work at 5. But at that time, she felt nothing. Now, thinking back on it all, a wave of suffocation rises in my throat. The suffering that Joanna endured was all brought on by her mother. She suddenly collapsed to the ground, tears streaming uncontrollably from the corners of her eyes. Every time I think of Joanna's hesitant expression, Mom regrets why she didn't ask one more question back then, even if it was just one. I'm sorry. She composed herself before walking upstairs, and saw her Sophia, who, as always, leaped into her arms. Mom, have you found my sister? Mom looked at her coldly and shook her head. Sophia immediately showed a look of disappointment. How many days has it been? My sister is deliberately trying to ruin my reputation and then leave. I won't let her get away with it. She murmured to herself, wishing she could find Joanna immediately. Why do you hate your sister so much? Mom questioned her with a cold face. Sophia was taken aback. She had never seen Mom with such an expression. It's my sister who hates me. She actually did that to me in public. I am now Lou family's daughter, and her insulting me is an insult to the Lou family. I will not allow her to do this. Speaking with conviction, Mom was just quietly watching her from the side. Aren't you the one who stole your sister's boyfriend first? Then tell me, what did your sister do wrong? From childhood to now, Mom has basically never lost her temper at her. This is also the first time. She was startled by the scene before her and immediately began to feel wronged. Mom, how can you speak for her? I'm your biological daughter. Mom glared, then threw the diary directly at her. Do you still want to deceive me, biological daughter? Haven't you been using your sister's situation to deceive me all these years? How can you even say biological daughter to me? Mom couldn't hide the hatred on her face. Sophia gasped, unable to believe they had discovered everything. Clearly, she had played her role so well. How could they possibly find out? She opened the diary and looked at the records of their various moments. Sophia's eyes began to redden, her expression tense. What can this prove? Maybe she did this on purpose to sow discord between us. Mom let out a cold laugh, not expecting that at this moment Sophia was still trying to argue. Then tell me, where did the bracelet I gave you the moment you were born go? Sophia was taken aback when she heard bracelet, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. It's been so long. It must have been taken by the dean, she said decisively, but Mom knew in her heart that there was no bracelet at all. She didn't mention the safety talisman at all. In Mom's heart, she already had the answer. Before Sophia could react, Mom's slap landed hard on her face. You still lied to me. You are no longer my daughter. You can't wait for your sister to die so you can comfortably take the position of the lady of the house. Can you? Sophia clutched her face tightly, her eyes red and mixed with blood. So what? She doesn't deserve to be the lady of the house at all. I've accompanied her for over 10 years. Hasn't that been good enough? Sophia never felt she did anything wrong in her words. But Mom, every time she thought of Joanna, her heart ached. Get out of here! Sophia was startled when Mom asked her to leave Lou's house. I won't dare again. Please don't kick me out, she cried and pleaded with Mom. But Mom didn't want to hear another word from her, wishing she would just disappear from her sight. You better get out of Lou's home right now, or I'll have to call someone to throw you out. Seeing Mom was resolute, she no longer pretended, immediately wiped away the tears, glaring at Mom with a cold smile. Do you think that by driving me away, Joanna will still come back to be the lady of this house? Aren't you the one who kept pushing her away? All her retribution is because of you. The more she spoke, the more agitated she became, and hurtful words slipped out. Mom understands how she feels about Joanna but still finds it hard to accept when these words come from someone else's mouth. In a fit of anger, she felt dizzy and collapsed directly onto the ground. The nanny, hearing the commotion, was so frightened that she immediately called for an ambulance. Lou's dad also dropped his work, unaware of the situation. He went to the hospital with Sophia, standing outside the door. Sophia couldn't control her trembling legs out of fear. She had always understood Lou's dad's temperament. He was especially affectionate towards Lou's mom. If he found out that Lou's mom had collapsed from anger, she didn't know what he would do. When Lou's mom woke up, only Lou's dad went to the ward. It has been half an hour since she left. Sophia felt like she was sitting on pins and needles, her mind consumed with how to get through this. When Lou's dad finally came out with a stern face, Sophia looked up and met his gaze. My heart raced, and I began to stammer. Dad, how is Mom? Lou's dad looked pale, his eyes fixed intently on the woman in front of him. Don't call me Dad. Do you think we're all fools? This isn't the first time she's seen Dad lose his temper. No matter how much she tries to comfort herself, his shouting still makes her flinch. Without the earlier momentum of arguing with Lou's mom at home, her eyes immediately turned red. Lou's dad has always been someone who speaks decisively. No, I truly mean it for you and Mom. This is fine to say to Lou's mom, but saying it to him is completely useless. We have been together for so many years. I will let you leave with dignity. From now on, you are no longer the daughter of the Lou family. There was no expression on his face, and Sophia knew he was serious. Suddenly, she burst into tears. Ever since she was little, whenever she cried, her parents would always soften. Dad, how could you do this to me? She was scared to leave this home. For all these years, she had been living under the identity of Joanna. She couldn't accept that she had nothing, but she forgot how much Lou's dad once adored her, and now how much he despised her, not even willing to glance at her, even if it means kneeling on the ground. Don't let me see you again. This is Lou's dad's last sentence to Sophia. 10 minutes later, Sophia's news of being kicked out of the house had already spread throughout the circle. Lou's dad personally came out to declare that Sophia has no further ties with them. She was nailed to the pillar of shame, and everyone knew she was a liar. Even those who once hated her began to openly discuss her. Those whom she looked down upon also began to mock. She looked at the news on her phone, half crying, half laughing. Even she couldn't believe that everything she had was gone today. Now she feels like a rat crossing the street. Anyone who sees her can scold her. Sitting on the bench, looking at the door, a fire ignited in her heart. It is hatred. She hates this hypocritical family. She is unwilling to accept it. Why can Joanna still have what she once possessed? Why treat her like this? She secretly vowed to reclaim everything that belonged to her. Lou's dad was sitting by Lou's mom's bedside, looking at her pale face. It was a look she hadn't seen in a long time, and it made her feel a bit heartbroken. She stared blankly at Lou's dad, and whenever Joanna was mentioned, she couldn't help but redden her eyes. Which mother doesn't love her own child? But she has endured so much suffering for so many years. Lou's dad was comforting her with words, but he also knew how Joanna had lived all these years. Hearing all the truths was like a bolt from the blue. He felt a deep discomfort in his heart. The two of them locked eyes. And they both understood. Lou Mom asked Lou Dad with heavy eyelids. Do you think Joanna will ever forgive us? Lou Dad slightly raised a smile at her and nodded. After Lou Mom fell asleep, he stood in the hallway and smoked a cigarette. Can't find Joanna. That's the answer she left for them. After being kicked out of the house, Sophia only packed her bags to find a place to stay. She already had someone in mind, and she arrived early at Cameron's doorstep. Ron, it's me. I've come to find you. Hearing Sophia's voice, Cameron immediately darkened his face. What are you doing here? On the other end of the line, Cameron's tone was cold, as if he would hang up the phone at any moment. I'm here to see you. My sister isn't home right now. Can't I come? Cameron had already known about her relationship with the Liu family before she arrived. She also understands Sophia's intentions, which are to seek refuge with him. He should feel sad for her, having once longed for her to establish herself in the Liu family, even at the cost of hurting Joanna. Yet when he saw the news of Sophia being kicked out, he couldn't help but feel a flicker of amusement. He should have recognized his own heart long ago. All along, he has been in love with Joanna. It is a love that Joanna can no longer accept. I don't want this. This is my home with Joanna. Please leave. It was the first time Sophia was rejected by him, and she felt unwilling to accept it. Once, Cameron would obey her every word, even going to great lengths to take care of her. What are you saying? Don't you love me the most? These words pierced Cameron's ears the most painfully. He tightly shut his eyes, his tone starting to become a bit impatient. I don't love you. I've always loved your sister. Sophia couldn't believe it. If he truly loved her sister, how could he have stayed by her side so many times, playing and joking with her behind Joanna's back? Stop deceiving yourself. Don't you remember those nights you would rather abandon her to be with me? You have feelings for me. Don't think that just because your sister left you, you truly loved her. You didn't. Sophia grew more and more anxious. Her words were a constant reminder of Cameron's crimes. Cameron also became impatient, his face turning red with anger. I told you, being with you is just for fun. I got carried away with that feeling. I'm sorry for your sister, but I love her. I never thought about having a future with you. Stop bothering me. How he treated Joanna, he knew. How could he forget? It has been half a month since she left, and it seems like a lot has changed. He hadn't been out for a long time either, perhaps afraid of hearing the scorn. But all of this was Joanna's punishment for him. He accepted it all, hoping that Joanna could return to his side. He blocked Sophia's number, and it became much quieter. When the phone rang again, it was Mom's call. As always, she was either scolding him for being useless or urging him to participate in activities. But he simply couldn't muster any interest. He answered the phone with a blank expression. What is it? Prepare for the wedding with Sophia. Cameron was taken aback, questioning in disbelief. Why should I? Fu Mother let out a cold laugh from the other end, her tone filled with helplessness and sarcasm. Why should I? Don't you know how you feel? Who told you to get her pregnant? And now you want me to clean up your mess. After being rejected by Cameron, she set her sights on his family. Initially, she wanted to secretly terminate the pregnancy, but she didn't expect it to come in handy at this moment. She informed Fu Mother about the pregnancy. Even if Fu Mother didn't like her, she had to accept the child in her womb. The most important thing is that she is using the revelation about the child to threaten their Fu family. Everyone knows what the consequences will be once this matter comes to light. Fu Mother had no choice but to agree, although she didn't give her a pleasant expression. But she always felt that as long as she entered that door, Cameron would be able to accept her. After learning the ins and outs of the situation, Cameron angrily smashed his phone onto the ground. Sophia would stop at nothing to get into his family. I disagree. I will not marry her. Fu Mother was so angry her head hurt. Speaking without any courtesy. You have to marry, whether you want to or not. Your actions have already affected your father's company. What? Do you really want to drag our entire family down with you? Fu didn't want to say much to him. This was his own mess. and he had to solve it himself. She personally sent Sophia into Cameron's home. Seeing Cameron, Sophia was frozen in place, and there was not a trace of expression on Cameron's face. "What exactly do you want to do?" Sophia, with watery eyes, immediately grabbed his hand. "I miss you. Your mother has already agreed for us to be together. I don't want anything right now. I just want to be with you, okay?" Her tone was filled with pleading. If she had said these words to him earlier, perhaps he would have believed her. But now, with every word she spoke, he felt it was all hypocritical. He forcefully pushed Sophia away. "I don't want to be with you. The further you are from me, the better." Sophia stared at him blankly, not understanding why Cameron had suddenly changed like this. Tears slid down her cheeks as her hand caressed her belly. "Ron, you may not like me, but our child." Cameron turned around, not wanting to look at him any longer. Hearing the child, he merely said coldly, "This child, it would be better not to have." Sophia stared wide-eyed at Cameron's back, feeling it was so unfamiliar. "What did you say?" Cameron knew better than anyone that this child was merely a pawn for Sophia. Did she ever truly want this child to be born? It was all her scheming, yet Joanna never calculated against him. Cameron ignored it and turned to go to the bedroom. The room felt empty without Joanna's things. He instructed the servants to buy some items to arrange the room as it originally was. Only when he saw everything neatly placed in the room did he feel that Joanna had not left. When Cameron opened his eyes again, he found Sophia lying beside him. In that moment of awakening, he momentarily thought that Joanna had returned. He immediately got out of bed, and Sophia was also awakened by the noise. "Ron, what's wrong?" Cameron was taken aback, his expression extremely grim. "Who told you to get into bed?" Sophia smiled gently, mistakenly thinking it was Cameron who was shy. "It's not the first time. So what's the big deal? It's been so many days. Don't you want me to keep you company?" In his usual tone, Cameron looked at her with disdain. "This is my and Joanna's bedroom. Get out!" These words deeply hurt Sophia, and she immediately changed her tone. "What, Joanna? She has been gone for so long, and you still remember her? She did it on purpose. She doesn't want to see you anymore." Like a wild beast, he charged at Cameron, unable to control his anger any longer. He forcefully pulled Sophia over, indifferent even if she accidentally fell to the ground. No matter how she screamed, Cameron locked her outside the door. Sophia sat on the ground in a panic, listening to her heartbeat, and absent-mindedly touched her belly. Fortunately, the baby is fine. She stared hard at everything in front of her. Since he liked it so much, she was determined to destroy it herself. Sophia pointed her anger at the Fu family, frequently calling to urge Fu mother. Now only Fu mother can control Cameron, and she would certainly hold on tightly. Under Fu mother's pressure, Cameron was forced to obtain a marriage certificate with Sophia. Everyone in the circle knew about their situation, and no one offered them any blessings. After the certificate was obtained, she began to pressure Fu mother to arrange their wedding. Everyone knows she is a disreputable person. It's a huge joke that she dares to have Fu Jia handle matters that can't be hidden on her face. After getting the certificate, she also began to flaunt her power at home. Even if Cameron ignores her, she doesn't care, because now, she is the mistress of this house. "Your mom said we will hold the wedding next month." She got the result she wanted. Cameron turned pale at the mention of marriage. "Dream on." Sophia let out a cold laugh, completely indifferent to what Cameron was saying. She only knew that she would soon have everything she wanted. Cameron experienced for the first time what it felt like to live a lifetime with someone he didn't love. No matter how he tried to escape, he could always see Sophia's figure. He hated her so much that he dreamed of killing her. His life was ruined by her. He won't let Sophia's dreams come true. He wants Sophia to suffer just like him. Cameron initiated a conversation with Sophia for the first time. "I have something to give you. Come upstairs." Sophia smiled, thinking that Cameron still loved her. She went upstairs with joy. But just as she reached the second floor, Cameron suddenly stood in front of her. Without the slightest hesitation, he pushed her down the stairs, and Sophia had no time to react. She rolled down the stairs and crashed hard against the wall. She looked at Cameron, who was high above her, with a face full of pain, not expecting him to take it this far. The pain in her lower abdomen made her fully realize what was happening. It turned out that Cameron wanted her to have an abortion. There was no gift at all. It was just a trick to deceive her. Sitting on the ground, she panicked and screamed for help. But what she didn't know was that all the servants in the house had been sent away by Cameron. She looked up at Cameron with a pitiful expression, tears streaming down her face uncontrollably. "Call 120 quickly. This is our child." Cameron looked at her coldly, unmoved. "I beg you." Hearing her miserable voice, Cameron showed no reaction, the corners of his mouth slightly rising, leaving only one sentence. "You don't deserve to bear my child. You can't compare to Joanna in any way." Sophia felt despair for the first time. And it felt like this. It wasn't until nearly half an hour had passed that the ambulance finally arrived at the door. Cameron timed it perfectly. Even if his heart was dead, he would ensure this child was completely lost. Cameron also followed the ambulance to the hospital. As expected, the child was gone, and Sophia cried bitterly. Cameron couldn't even utter a single word of comfort. "Why are you doing this? This is our first child." Cameron glanced at her with disdain. This child should never have existed. Fu's mother also hurried to the hospital upon hearing the news. And after hearing that Sophia had a miscarriage, she showed no reaction. Sophia saw through the coldness of this family. Her face was pale as she spoke to the cold Cameron. "If I were Joanna, I would leave this house too." Cameron let out a cold laugh. She wasn't even worthy of mentioning Joanna. "Isn't this exactly the outcome you wanted?" Then she left her alone at the hospital and went home. Sophia has been hospitalized for several days, and no one has come to see her. When she was discharged, she returned to Fu's home, and sitting in the living room was Fu's mother. "You're back? Are you feeling better?" Hearing Fu's sudden concern, she was taken aback. Feeling better." But Cameron showed no signs, lazily leaning on the sofa. It had been a few days since they last met, and Cameron seemed even more haggard. Only he understood in his heart that the longer it went on, the stronger his desire to see Joanna became. Sophia dragged her weary body back to the room, but was called to a halt by Cameron. "Where are you going?" "Back to the room." Cameron kept his eyes closed, a smirk playing on his lips. "Room? There is no room for you here anymore." Sophia stood frozen in place, her eyes fixed on the mother and son. "What do you mean?" "The literal meaning. There is no room for you here. Can't you understand?" Cameron spoke with his usual lack of mercy. Sophia let out a self-deprecating laugh and said to them, "Don't forget, we are not divorced yet." Fu's mother glanced at her, stood up, still wearing that same smile. "Sophia, we came today to talk to you about the divorce. Now Sophia has lost the child, and for them, she is naturally of no use." Sophia understood her situation, but she was unwilling to accept it. Cameron was so cold that he personally killed his own child. This was something she had never anticipated, especially compared to Cameron's previous tenderness and thoughtfulness. She finally felt that she was the one who had been deceived all along. Sophia does not agree to the divorce. Fu's mother speaks without holding back. "If you don't divorce, Fu will no longer accept you and will kick you out of this family. But if you agree to the divorce, perhaps we will give you some money." This is forcing Sophia to make a choice. Sophia was also unapologetic, reverting to her previous sharpness. "Don't forget, it was you who caused me to lose my child, and you are responsible for that. Be careful, or I will expose all of you to the media." The way she speaks now has no credibility at all. Fu's mother and Cameron didn't take it seriously at all. Seeing that she was still threatening, Fu's mother had already started calling people to throw her things out, and Cameron was just quietly watching from the side, showing no intention of helping. Sophia only began to panic upon seeing this and rushed forward to stop them. "What are you doing? These are all my things." The servants bypassed her and threw everything outside. Sophia understood there was no turning back. She immediately let out a breath. "I'll leave. Just give me the money and I'll go." Cameron slowly stood up after hearing this. "If I had known it would be like this, wouldn't it have been better?" Without hesitation, I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get the certificate, just as Sophia was realizing she needed to get the money. But Fu's mother refused to acknowledge it. Did I ever say that? Now you have nothing to do with our family, so why should our money go to you? Sophia was so furious that she couldn't stand still, rushing forward to grab Cameron only to be violently thrown to the ground. Stop bothering me. I feel sick just seeing you. Sophia was like a stray dog, discarded on the ground. With people coming and going, Sophia could only find a place to rest for a while. She had never imagined her ending would be like this. Now she felt more Cameron than anyone. She edited the message and sent it all out in one breath. Fu, the young master, was caught meeting with other women during his engagement. Cameron deliberately caused someone to have a miscarriage. Perhaps worried that this day would come, she had kept many photos in advance, and these photos were enough to plunge their family into a period of public controversy. Sophia watched the flood of insults pouring from her phone, observing Fu Company's stock plummet. Since I'm not doing well, then no one else should expect to be happy. This is Joanna's first month on the cruise ship. Watching the exciting news continuously flooding her phone, she seems to be happy every day, mainly because she is no longer affected by those trivial matters. Having left that city, no one can reach her. The cruise ship has everything, but sometimes she often feels lonely. But compared to that failed relationship, she is willing to endure loneliness. She arrived in Paris early this morning. Unique buildings appeared before her eyes, just as she had imagined. It is now 6 in the morning, and everything is perfectly quiet. Seagulls flew overhead, making a melodious sound. Joanna smiled, but when she turned her gaze, she found herself locking eyes with the man on the adjacent cruise ship. Coincidentally, their cruise ships were the same. Joanna was taken aback. When she purchased this ship, the staff had mentioned that there were only 2 in the world. The world is so vast, yet it allowed them to meet. Joanna's expression was meaningful. The man across from her looked mature and composed, and when he saw Joanna, he was taken aback for quite a while. Joanna gave him a slight smile, then turned and returned to her room. By the time the sun rose, she saw the man still standing outside, unsure if he was admiring the beautiful scenery or waiting for someone. He held a newly bought bottle of red wine in his hand, dressed in casual attire, but Joanna could tell at a glance that he was not an ordinary person. He resembled a business elite. He took the initiative to greet Joanna with polite subtlety. Would you like to try some together? He pointed to the red wine in his hand. This wasn't Joanna's first time being approached. Along her journey, she had crossed several countries and encountered many foreigners wanting to share a boat with her. Joanna is a perfect blend of realism and romanticism. I always feel that fate cannot be forced, and I have turned them all down one by one. But encountering Chinese people abroad, especially those on the same boat, Joanna felt a special sensation in her heart the first time she saw this man. On that day, as the wind blew through Joanna's hair, she looked into the man's deep-set eyes and nodded. Sure. For safety, the man came aboard her cruise ship. Having bodyguards nearby made Joanna feel secure. It was the first time the 2 of them enjoyed dinner on the cruise ship, and she felt a bit out of place. Since boarding the ship, she has been eating alone every day. But the man in front of her spoke eloquently, easing her tension. She discovered that they had many interests and common topics. She also learned the man's name, which is Colin. We only left after chatting deep into the night. Before leaving, Colin looked back with a hint of reluctance, his face still wearing that smile, accompanied by a gentle tone. So, will we still be able to see each other tomorrow? He didn't know that Paris was Joanna's destination, and he was also afraid that when he opened his eyes, the ship would disappear before him. Joanna was momentarily stunned. What? Do you treat all girls like this? Cameron smiled and waved his hand. Not really. After leaving, Joanna lay alone on the bed, reflecting on the scene that had just unfolded. Thinking of Colin's face, she always felt it was familiar, as if she had seen it somewhere, yet she could never recall. Today seemed to be the happiest day she had experienced since coming out, and this happiness also stemmed from that unfamiliar man. She did not force all the causes and effects, but rather accepted the fate that brought them together. Joanna, the plan for today is to go out for a stroll. It would be a pity not to go out after coming to Paris. After she finished packing, she turned around and saw Colin. Today, Colin had specially styled his hair, which made his face appear even more handsome. Joanna didn't ask much, softly greeted him, and turned to leave, perhaps seeing Joanna in her formal long dress. Colin spoke first. "Are you going out?" "I'm going out too. Do you want to go together?" He was very proactive, as if he had been waiting here for a long time. Joanna was taken aback. Could it be that he had been waiting for her all along? She didn't voice the question, but it seemed nice if someone could share the same beautiful view with her. She didn't refuse. Weaving through the streets of Paris together, Colin looked at Joanna's smile, admiring her innocence and kindness, although she appeared cold. For some reason, Joanna's smile always seemed to infect him. Passing by, he saw a homeless child, and Colin put down what he was holding and was the first to stand in front of the child. He spoke fluent American English, simply asking the child a question, and then took out a wad of cash from his pocket and handed it to him. Joanna watched his behavior, stunned for a moment before she reacted. "Are you giving him money because you feel sorry for him?" Colin smiled slightly, coming out of his daze. "I suppose so, because I had a tough time when I was very young. Having experienced hardship herself, she always wanted to provide shelter for others." Colin wore a watch worth $1 million and dressed in high-end custom clothing. Joanna found it hard to imagine that someone like him had ever suffered. Unintentionally bringing it up, it made Joanna think of her time in the welfare institute. So every time she saw a child alone, stranded on the street, she felt a pang of sadness. She wanted to say that she was also like this when she was young, but the words never made it to her lips. It seems that the days of suffering were not limited to her childhood. There was also the return to that indifferent Lou family. Colin seemed to notice her emotions and, when she wasn't paying attention, bought her a bouquet of flowers from the roadside. "This is for you. It suits you well." Joanna smiled. The surprise was something that had not appeared for her in a long time. As they walked together along the path by the river, Colin inadvertently mentioned his childhood, revealing that he had also spent some time in the welfare institute. And before going to the welfare institute, he was also a lost child who had wandered outside for a long time. It's hard to get something to eat. Everyone sees him as physically fit and thinks he must be lying. It was this sentence that made Joanna realize, "You can't be that chubby kid." Colin was frozen in place, his eyes wide open. "How do you know I was chubby when I was a kid? You haven't stayed at that welfare institute too, have you?" They all looked at each other in disbelief. No wonder Joanna found him extremely familiar. Joanna met him for the first time. It turned out to be that welfare institute. The chubby little boy who had always followed her around was now standing right beside her. She never expected that he, back then, was not called Colin. And after being taken away by his mother, they never saw each other again. No one ever thought they would meet again in a foreign land. At this moment, the encounter took on a new meaning. Joanna looked at the person in front of her, as if she had found a new companion. "You say, is this fate?" Colin looked at Joanna with his crescent-shaped eyes. After almost 20 years, how could it not count? The word fate seems to have a new definition. Joanna's cruise ship stayed in Paris for 2 months, and Colin seemed to have found his own destination. Perhaps for him, this was just a simple trip, but he met someone he felt was very important. They got along very well, exploring every corner of Paris. It seemed that all along, Joanna wanted a life like this. She wanted the person she loved to be by her side. She wanted to be free and unrestrained. But for her, the past 20 years had been so difficult. For the first time, Joanna openly talked about her past experiences. She spoke lightly, as if recounting someone else's story. Yet, Colin's gaze at her was filled with compassion. She spoke out loud about the betrayal of the person she had been with for 2 years and her sister. As she spoke, she suddenly laughed, looking up at Colin, yet unable to stop the tears from flowing. "Don't you think it's quite ridiculous too?" Colin reached out to wipe away the tears from the corners of her eyes and embraced her. "I don't feel that way." Joanna was taken aback. In the 2 or 3 months they had been talking, they had only delved into each other's hearts. This was Colin's first time hugging her. She did not push him away. This embrace soothed the wounds in her heart. She is not afraid to reveal herself to him. She is just afraid that he will reject her. Are you willing to start a relationship with me? I like you. As she spoke these words, people below began to board the boat, each holding a bouquet. 999 roses appeared before her eyes, placed on the deck. Joanna took a long time to react from her earlier emotions. It turns out that Colin had planned today's confession long ago. They say that a romance begins with receiving a bouquet of flowers, and before her were hundreds of bouquets. Joanna was a bit incoherent. Colin looked at her with deep affection, dressed in a tailored suit, his broad shoulders and slim waist making him appear even more three-dimensional. I really like you, to be honest. I haven't been in many relationships. If you're willing, I'll let you manage all my money. Joanna never thought about managing the other person's assets. What she had always wanted was a sincere love. Why should one fear failure because of a single setback? She should confront her own heart. She has feelings for the man in front of her. Looking at Colin nervously holding a bouquet in front of her, his hands trembling uncontrollably. Well, shall we give it a try? As soon as these words were spoken, Colin immediately sighed in relief, smiling as he lifted Joanna into his arms. Joanna believed that at this moment, they were undoubtedly the happiest people. At that moment, a middle-aged woman appeared behind Colin. She shattered this moment of happiness. Colin. She gently called out to them, and Colin immediately reacted. Mom, you're here. His mother was sizing up Joanna with a gaze she was all too familiar with. Once, Fu's mother had looked at her the same way, and what followed was nothing but ridicule. Joanna seemed to be ready for what was to be said, but unexpectedly he asked nothing and took the initiative to hold Joanna's hand. You must be Joanna, right? Colin has been messaging me about you every day on his phone. Today is also the moment my son confesses, and I specially came to see it. The smile in her eyes held not a trace of falsehood. Joanna stared blankly at the loving woman in front of her. A trace of envy arose in her heart. Before seeing Lou Mom, she had thought her own mother would look like this too. Watching Colin playfully tussle with his mother. Having such a mother must be very happy, right? Then, his mother took out a box from her bag. Upon opening it, a perfectly green jade appeared before her eyes. Such a piece would probably fetch 1 or 2 million in the market. Joanna, this is a personal gift from me to you. I hope you like it. Joanna's pupils dilated, not expecting his mother to give such an expensive gift. No, no, no. This is too precious. His mother smiled, took Joanna's hand, and firmly pressed it into her palm. Actually, Colin told me about your background. You may have had a difficult past. But it's okay. From now on, our home is your home. You are my daughter. Perhaps it was Joanna's first time feeling valued by someone. Tears kept welling up in her eyes. This money should be spent on you. Don't worry. Our family has more than enough money. No one in her family had ever truly valued her. Even gifts were mostly leftovers from Sophia. The things she wanted were all bought through her own efforts. She is more grateful for this fate than anyone else. And even more grateful to Colin. During the time Joanna left, Cameron never felt a single day was good. In the vast house, he was all alone. As he passed by the living room, he would start to reminisce. He missed the moments spent with Joanna cuddled on the sofa watching TV. I see that Christmas is approaching. I will miss the times when I thoughtfully prepared gifts for each other. When we first got together, Joanna stayed up late designing clothes. Sometimes not sleeping for 2 or 3 nights when she was busy. It was just to earn a bit more money that I gave him a luxury watch on Christmas Day. She knew Cameron didn't lack luxury watches, but it was the first time he felt such sincere and heartfelt love. At that moment, tears welled up in his eyes, watching her work so hard. It turned out it was just for the watch she gave him. He held Joanna tightly. He secretly vowed to treat her well for a lifetime. When does this promise no longer count? Perhaps he has even forgotten himself. He mocked his own self-inflicted suffering, yet he still thought about her coming back again. He searched desperately for so long, but still found no news about him. Lou Mom has also been discharged from the hospital and is now resting at home every day. From time to time, she takes out the Joanna diary and looks at it over and over again. Those countless moments when she was cold and unfeeling. not recognizing Joanna. It's like a knife stabbing her heart, constantly reminding her that she cannot forget. How could she forget? She personally drove her daughter out of the house. She personally made her choose to leave this home. But by the time she realized it, it was too late. The house is empty, and she remembers the year she just brought Joanna home. She was afraid of being sent away again, so she got up early every day. While other children her age were still sleeping in, she had already started to take care of herself. In her studies, she never let them worry. When she brought home the award for being first in her grade, it still didn't earn her a single word of praise. But Sophia is different. For every step she takes forward, Lou Mom will sell her new things as a reward. She is too understanding. So understanding that she does many things to win their favor. But they turned a blind eye. I don't know when it started. Joanna just stopped trying to please them, because she knows that a heartless person cannot be pleased no matter how hard one tries. She often gazes out the window, lost in thought. It seems that ever since that day, she has lost all her joy. There is no mother who does not wish for her child to be happy. She is constantly thinking about Joanna. How is she doing? Is she well-fed and warmly dressed? Does she have enough money? But Joanna will never know. They will also never know that Joanna is still the excellent person she once was. She is now fully capable of taking care of herself. I have long since stopped depending on Lou's family. This worry is utterly useless. Such days have gone on for a long time, until a phone call came in on Cameron's phone. It was his mutual friend with Joanna. Leo, have you been in touch with Joanna recently? Have you seen her? Recently, quite a few people have called to ask him. He thought it was the same old questions. No. What's the matter? She paused for a long time before slowly speaking. I'm currently traveling in Paris, and I saw someone who looks a lot like Joanna on a cruise ship. Cameron felt a surge of tension and tightened his grip on the phone. What did you say? Where? Did you misread it? Leo immediately took a photo when he saw him, not believing. It can't be wrong. It's Joanna. He looked at the photo of Joanna, who was poised and full of smiles. It seems like her, yet it is not her. He was in a daze for a long time before he remembered how long it had been since he last saw her smile. His gaze shifted to the man on the other side. Her complexion was extremely poor, thoughts she couldn't control. Joanna should be very happy during this time, and her happiness comes from the man in the photo. He was a bit angry, yet powerless. He asked Leo for the exact address of the cruise ship. Even knowing that Joanna was doing well now, he still couldn't help but want to find her. He wanted to bring her back. After receiving the news, Cameron quickly got the message. At this moment, Lou Mom also suddenly called to check in. Cameron, anxious, directly revealed that he was going abroad to find Joanna. When Lou Mom heard that Joanna was in Paris, tears of excitement were about to flow. Wait for me 10 minutes. I'll come too. She brought nothing but her card and ID. She quickly booked a flight to Paris, her heart filled with anxiety as she looked forward to seeing her daughter again. She didn't speak the entire way. Sitting next to Cameron, their occasional small gestures revealed their tension. Why not feel nervous about facing those who have hurt you in the past? He looked out the window, unable to believe that Joanna would go to Paris all alone. When they were together, he often heard Joanna mention her desire to go to Paris, and Cameron would always respond dismissively. After arriving in Paris, they didn't even have time to put down their luggage. They went straight to the location their friend had sent. But when they arrived, they found nothing. Only after asking the people nearby did they learn that the friend had just left. You mean those 2 cruise ships? Oh, they were magnificent. It was as if fate had decreed that he was destined not to see Joanna. Cameron would not let this opportunity to meet slip away. Every time he thought of Joanna with another man, his heart ached involuntarily. They searched along the river in Paris. The result truly led them to find it. They looked at the enormous cruise ship. No one expected that Joanna was leaving on the cruise ship. With a glance, they saw Joanna wearing a casual dress, holding a bouquet of fresh flowers. She then quietly sat at the table to share dinner, her face adorned with an unprecedented smile. Lou Mom and Cameron stood there in a daze. Opposite Joanna sat Colin and he mother. It was like a scene of a family of 3 together, chatting and laughing. It was Joanna had never experienced before. It also stung their eyes. Joanna never smiled like that when she was with them. Lou Mom watched them tremble uncontrollably, pointing at them, looking at Cameron. What is this? How could they not know? This is Joanna's new home. She no longer wants her mom and boyfriend. Lou Mom covered her mouth with her hand, watching Joanna be so kind to that middle-aged woman, feeling uneasy inside, yet unable to control her emotions. Cameron didn't speak. No one knew what he was thinking. He slowly walked upwards, like an intruder breaking this tranquility. Lou Mom also followed behind, until Joanna saw them. In that moment of eye contact, Joanna's smile froze on her face. She seemed to have guessed that this day would come. Why are you here? Joanna looked at them coldly, withdrawing all her smiles and joy. What do you want from me? She looked at the two people in front of her, her gaze as if she were looking at strangers. Cameron was suddenly stunned at the moment he looked at Joanna. During the time she was gone, she seemed to have become more beautiful. He was silent for a long time before slowly saying, "I'm sorry." But this sentence, Joanna didn't want to hear at all. She just hoped her life could be peaceful and serene. Other than that, she wanted nothing. The apology felt like reopening her wounds once again, and it forced her to forgive. Joanna looked at him with eyes that held only indifference. You don't need to say sorry to me. I don't want to hear it. Cameron knew she definitely wouldn't forgive her, and stepped forward to grab her hand. I thought it would be like before. Just a few sweet words would make everything right. Please come back, okay? I really miss you. I've been looking for you for a long time, and I have already. Sophia. She didn't care at all about how he was doing. Joanna, feeling annoyed, she shook off Cameron's hand. Can you stop talking? What does it have to do with me? It was the first time he saw such a Joanna, full of impatience, which once again pierced his heart. With red-rimmed eyes, he looked at Joanna, as if he wanted to hear sweet words from her lips. It's simply impossible. Joanna sat at the table, knowing that if she didn't clarify things today, they would never leave. No matter how far they went, they would never let her off the hook. Do you really want me to go back with you? What are you thinking? After all the dirty things you've done, do you still fantasize about us being together? Cameron listened, his face turning red. I was wrong. I will change. Can you come back with me? I promise I will treat you better than before. Joanna lost her patience and shot him a fierce glance. Are you deaf? I have no feelings for you anymore, and I will definitely not go back with you. Cameron, how could he not understand? He just doesn't want to accept reality. Joanna, how could she say she doesn't love him after being so good to him before? He doesn't understand, nor does he believe it. He pointed at Joanna's man beside her. Is it because of him? Joanna thought he was unreasonable. What right did he have to blame others first? Who cheated first? We had a peaceful breakup. Cameron couldn't take it in at all and rushed forward to confront Colin. Joanna immediately blocked Colin's path, and Cameron looked at them with a cold sneer. So you're willing to be with him, but you don't want to go back with me. Is that it? Why should I go back with you? This is his home. If you mess with him today, you'll be on the front page tomorrow when you go back to your country. Lou Mom was taken aback beside him. That top-ranked family in City A? Everyone knows the weight of being first, which would lead to a commercial war between the Lou family and the Fu family. Joanna had long known about their family's background, but she didn't want their relationship to be affected by these matters. Colin looked at Joanna and smiled, immediately shielding her behind him. It's fine. I can still handle him. Colin hadn't shown them any expression all along. He wished he could just call someone to throw them out at that very moment. Can you stop making a scene? Now that I'm abroad, you still won't let me go? Is it interesting to keep entangling like this? I only feel it's hypocritical. Joanna spoke word by word. She was filled with anger. If she were to say she hated, she certainly did. Wasn't all that pain brought to her by them? Lou Mom was trembling slightly, looking at Joanna, tears streaming down uncontrollably. Joanna was taken aback. It was the first time she had seen her mother cry. What left her in a daze for a moment was whether it was for her. It seems it's not that important anymore. Can you go back with Mom? Mom misses you. Lu's mom set aside her past sharpness and spoke to Joanna in a gentle and kind tone. After living together for 20 years, I had never spoken to her in such a tone. Only to Sophia, what she once longed for so much, now she no longer cares about. Joanna reined in her brilliance a little. I'm not going back. What's so good about that home? She also knew that her mother wouldn't let her go back for no reason. It was just that they knew she was the real daughter. But everything was too late. When she was 5, in order to please her mother, she gave her favorite Barbie doll to her. Her mother accepted it. Joanna was happy all day, until the next morning when the doll appeared in Sophia's hands. By the age of 12, she already understood how to make her father happy. They cared about grades, so she studied hard and ranked first in her class. But when she received the award and wanted praise, all she got in return was indifference. At 20, she was accepted into the best design school. Yet no one was happy for her. Instead, they kept pouring cold water on her, saying that she couldn't make it down this path. The more they denied her, the more she wanted to prove herself. The fact is, she became a well-known designer. In that home, she was still an outsider without a voice. How could she forget? She didn't forgive at all. She learned how to please herself. Watching Lu's mom tear up, I kept saying I'm sorry. She showed no emotion. This apology she had waited 20 years for. She tried hard to adjust her emotions so that no one could see. He, however, did not know when he had circled around to her back. A hand gently rested on her shoulder. It's okay, baby. It's all good now. This is a comfort that follows one sentence after another. Only then Joanna couldn't help but want to cry. He held her in his arms, just like comforting his own child. Lu's mom stood to the side, feeling quite uncomfortable inside. How she longed to hold her daughter, yet never had the chance. Once her emotions were settled, Joanna finally said, "Forget it. I don't want to go back to that home anymore. I found a home for myself." It was clear that Mu was the mother she had found for herself. Lu's mom stepped forward wanting to keep her. Joanna kept retreating. "You have already disturbed my life. Do you understand? My life has just begun." Lu's mom felt a bit sad to hear Joanna say such things. But mom still loves you. No mother wants her child to suffer outside. She was justifying herself. But Joanna couldn't hear a word. Now Sophia has already been kicked out by them. She might be their only hope. I said, "It's impossible to go back." As soon as these words were spoken, Lu's mom became overwhelmed with sadness and fainted on the ground. "Madam, what happened to you?" Cameron's shouting voice finally made Joanna react. She didn't want to stay behind to take care of Lu's mom. For the first time, Lu's dad called. "It's me, Joanna. Mom has fainted. Please come to Paris." As soon as these words were spoken, Lu's dad immediately pushed aside all meetings and activities. He booked the fastest flight to Paris, fearing that Lu's mom might have any mishap. In his heart, nothing was more important than Lu's mom. As soon as he got off the plane, Lu's dad rushed to the hospital, and when he saw Joanna, he was taken aback. Looking at Lu's mom who was still in a coma, Lu's dad's face was filled with worry. After watching for a while, he finally went out. Seeing Joanna sitting in the corridor, he sat down beside her. "This is your mother's third fainting spell, and each time it has been because of news about you. She always has an insurmountable hurdle in her heart, feeling that she owes you." Lu's dad, a big man, couldn't help but choke up at this moment. "I'm sorry too. Over the years, I have neglected everything about you. I'm sorry. I know your mom has probably told you a lot, but I still want to say, if you can, please come back. We all miss you." The word miss seems so niche. During her senior year, Joanna studied art and spent 3 to 4 months away from home for her research. Even so, she never received a single phone call or a text message. Caring seems so hard to express. Joanna always believed it was her fault that her parents didn't love her. But the truth was different. They had never really had her in their hearts. During that time, it seemed like there was no joy in anything other than painting. Would they understand? There is no true empathy in this world. How could they understand? I don't know when it happened, but when I heard this sentence, Tears unexpectedly fell from the corners of my eyes. Joanna immediately wiped away her emotions and replied, "Got it. Let me think for myself." Lou's dad no longer pressured her. When she walked alone outside, Colin would appear by her side, quietly keeping her company. He understands her sensitivity and fragility, understands her soft heart. Joanna stared blankly at a spot. "Colin, do you think I should go back?" She began to doubt her decision. Her mother was still lying in the hospital bed, and she felt like a mischievous child. Even she herself doesn't know what to think. Colin held her hand gently. "How could it be? All these years. It couldn't have been your fault. You are the one who was hurt. Follow your own thoughts. I will always be by your side." Tears welled up in Joanna's eyes. She couldn't help it every time she heard such words. "I feel so conflicted. On one hand, I hate what they did to me. But the moment I saw her lying in the hospital bed, I wanted to forgive them." Colin rested her head on his shoulder. "That's because you are clear about your loves and hates, yet still kind. Some people will summarize all her flaws as strengths. Some will tell her that everything she does is right." She faced her inner self and found the answer. Do not evade. Both the good and the bad have already happened. Perhaps people should look forward. And she was no exception. No matter what has happened has always happened. Both love and hate will eventually soothe her wounded soul. When she saw Lou's dad again, she already had her own thoughts in her heart. Not long after, Lou's mom woke up in the hospital. Lou's dad called her to come. She hurriedly tidied up a bit. The first thing Lou's mom asked when she opened her eyes was about Joanna. Where did Joanna go? Lou's dad informed her that Joanna would be here soon, which eased her mind. Did you know? Qingji has found a place for herself outside. Her trembling tone carried a hint of tears. Lou's dad nodded. He certainly knew. Lou's mom felt that Lou's dad was heartless and did not care about their child. But in places she couldn't see, Lou's dad had already sent many people to search for Joanna's whereabouts. He has always been this way. Whether you say it or not seems to change nothing. When Joanna arrived, Lou's mom forced a smile. On that pale face, there were only a pair of hollow eyes. It was the first time she had seen Lou's mom looking so haggard. Her lips trembled uncontrollably, wanting to ask something, but she held it back. Lou's dad stood up and offered his chair to Joanna. Sit down. Spend more time talking with your mom. Lou's mom struggled to sit up. Joanna, your dad and I truly hope you can come back to us. Continue being our daughter. Joanna lowered her head and said nothing. She didn't know how to speak. Facing her parents now, hope didn't seem to have died on the first day. Perhaps it was when she was 5, or maybe on the day of her wedding, when Lou's mom gave her that necklace. It all seemed unimportant now. Joanna remained silent for a long time before she slowly began to speak. I have actually forgiven you all in my heart. Lou's dad showed a long-lost smile on his face. Joanna could tell it was a genuine smile. But I am not planning to go back with you. The smile froze on her face. Lou's mom looked a bit lost. Why? Are you still angry with us? Joanna looked up at them. No. I was indeed angry when I first saw you, but now I am no longer angry. It seems that after leaving, I have understood a lot. When I was young, I always couldn't understand why. Even though we are all daughters, there was such a big difference in treatment between me and Sophia. That year I was only 5, and I began to learn to be obedient, to be sensible, and to make you happy. No one can forgive the child I was. I have forgiven you, but I cannot forgive my soft-hearted self. Lou's mom listened to her speak these words. Her eyes began to redden. She recalled the various moments of the past. There wasn't a single day she didn't hate herself. You don't have to do this. I hope you are healthy and no longer worry about me. Lou's mom held back her tears and nodded. We respect your choice. Lou's home will always be your home. If one day you want to come back, you can come back anytime, okay? Joanna paused for a moment before replying, okay. Watching Joanna walk away, Lou's mom could no longer hold back and cried in Lou's dad's arms. It felt like a knife was cutting through her heart. It seemed better, yet it also felt like it wasn't. Joanna's heart felt like it could no longer connect with them. After they left the hospital, Joanna arranged for them to be on the cruise ship. This way, she felt more at ease. It wouldn't be long before they had to leave here. However, Cameron was unwilling to leave. In the end, he even boarded the cruise ship with Lou Mom. Even with all the unwillingness, she couldn't be bothered to argue with him about anything. In the evening, Joanna accidentally encountered Cameron sitting there alone, drinking his sorrows away. She didn't approach to show concern. As she turned to leave, she was called back by Cameron. "Joanna, I really love you. Aren't you willing to give me another chance?" Joanna turned her head to meet his gaze. His face was flushed. It seemed like he would collapse to the ground at any moment. Joanna knew he was drunk and chose not to argue with him. "You've had too much to drink. Hurry back to your room." Just as she was about to leave, Cameron rushed forward and grabbed her. "Joanna, come back with me. Give me one more chance." He hugged Joanna tightly, burying his head in her neck. Feeling Cameron's breath, Joanna felt a surge of fear and immediately pushed him away. But no matter how hard she pushed, it was useless. "Can you stop making a scene? Let go. I will not go back with you." In an instant, a large hand from behind forcefully threw Cameron away, showing no mercy. "Are you out of your mind?" Joanna looked up, meeting the eyes of Colin. She hid behind Colin, gripping his arm like a frightened rabbit. All that could be seen on Colin's face was no longer the usual gentleness. Looking into Cameron's eyes, there was a hint of hostility. "If you keep acting crazy, you can get off the boat." Cameron let out a cold laugh, looking at Joanna, a mix of mockery and amusement. "Have you fallen in love with him?" He seemed very eager to know the answer. Joanna actively took Colin's hand, speaking in a firm tone. "I have fallen in love with him, and I am even preparing to marry him." This sentence crawled over Cameron like thousands of ants, bitten at his heart. He had never thought that one day he would see her fall in love with another man. It seemed he could suddenly feel the taste of betrayal. What was Joanna thinking during those moments when she pretended to be oblivious while arranging dates for him and Sophia? Before Cameron could react, Joanna pulled Colin away to the other side. Seeing Colin still wearing a stern expression, she knew he was unhappy. She stood on her tiptoes and gently kissed his cheek. Colin is indeed easy to please, and it didn't take long for him to smile. "I heard you're preparing to marry me?" Although it hasn't come to that yet, what Joanna said is true. "That's nonsense." Colin smiled slightly. "I'm serious. I'm going to tell my mom when I get back. She will definitely be very happy." After saying that, he leaned down and kissed Joanna on the lips. The sea breeze blew from the other side, and Cameron watched them clearly from the side, like a mouse hiding in a gutter, watching her happy appearance. Colin really told his mother, and they even set a date. Just 3 months later, they will return home to get married. Colin truly wants to marry Joanna, and even more, he wants her to understand his sincerity. Joanna knows better than anyone. After hearing this news, Cameron was so upset that he couldn't sleep. He can't change everything, comforting himself that perhaps time is the best medicine. Lou Mom and Lou Dad have no objections. Colin comes from a wealthy family and has excellent upbringing. The most important thing is that it is good for Joanna as well. They respect Joanna's thoughts and will no longer force Joanna. Only by seeing her happy can they truly feel at ease. 2 days later, they all returned to their country, and the journey of Colin and Joanna has just begun. They traveled abroad for a full 3 months, visiting 23 countries. The former Joanna never imagined she would have such a day, strolling around the world with a lover, walking through mountains and flower seas. These are the traces of their love. 3 months later, they returned to their country. According to the day they got married, there was only 1 week left. Colin personally managed all the details of the wedding after returning home. He wanted to give Joanna a unique wedding. He wanted the whole world to know that Joanna was his beloved. The wedding was held in the church, and the guests invited were not only friends and family but also the media. Lou Dad and his mother were also invited to the wedding. And at that moment, there was Cameron. It wasn't the first time he had seen Joanna in a wedding dress, but this time, it was not a wedding dress worn for him. He looked a bit heartbroken. His eyes couldn't help but redden as he looked at Joanna, the most beautiful image in his heart. He watched a pair of newlyweds embrace and kiss. They were a talented couple. Cameron turned and left the scene. but unexpectedly ran into someone he hadn't seen in a long time. Sophia. She was dressed in simple clothes. Cameron looked at the person in front of him and almost didn't recognize her. "What are you doing here?" Sophia had become much more haggard, but at the moment she saw Cameron, her tone was elevated. Joanna was already married. Yet Cameron still spoke in defense of Joanna. Sophia's heart grew more and more filled with hatred. She hasn't had a good day since she left Lou's house. The once pampered young lady has now fallen to washing dishes and wiping tables for others. She wished she could tear them all to pieces. After arguing with Cameron, she pulled a knife out of her pocket. She stabbed fiercely at Cameron's heart. Before Cameron could react, he fell to the ground. This knife also made passers-by scream in fright. Killing at the church door will incur divine punishment. Before she was taken away by the police, she still caught a glimpse of Joanna. She shouted towards Joanna, "It's all because of you. You bitch. Everything I have now is because of you." Joanna looked at Cameron lying in a pool of blood, in disbelief. In the end, Cameron succumbed to his injuries, and Sophia was also sentenced. Everything came too suddenly, but Joanna would not be affected by their affairs. Perhaps this is their retribution. 2 years later, Joanna and Colin returned from their trip abroad. They had a child. Now it is a happy family of 3. Their lives continue. The future remains long.